beautiful Amsterdam, we meet interesting people like Veronica McGregor from SHAPESHIFT. How are you doing, Veronica?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, doing fine. SHAPESHIFT, very known as a trading platform within the crypto community. The recent developments at SHAPESHIFT.
Well, we're very excited about our new platform. We've been working on it, and it's in closed beta now, and it's going to be in open beta soon. And it's very lovely to look at, and has a lot of different functionality than our current platform. And it will have a lot of new features. I'm not an engineer, so I don't want to discuss that part too much, but I think everyone will be very excited to see it. And we've gotten amazing feedback so far.
All right. So now it's more focusing on the background. Huh? I mean, I know it from the Exodus wallet. Of course, you have your own hardware wallet, KeepKey.
Right.
So perhaps you can explain the functionality of SHAPESHIFT itself as a platform.
Right. So we are different than an exchange that matches buyers and sellers. We are actually the counterparty to every transaction, and we never take custody of user assets, so they are very safe. And so therefore, if anyone hacks SHAPESHIFT, God forbid, they can't access user funds, right? So it's only our funds at risk, not users, no consumer funds at risk. And they're all kept, you would keep your own funds on a hardware wallet. Ours is KeepKey, but there are others in the market. We happen to think ours is the best, of course, because we're the owners of it. but that's our offering.
So, and what are the challenges actually for be your own bank? I mean, so yeah, it's a different model as a custodian model, like Coinbase, for instance.
Right. What are the challenges?
Yeah,
I think the challenges are that sometimes people don't understand it. So it's technology. They have to get their minds around it. It's slightly different than a bank, like an actual traditional bank, where you can, do online banking and someone else is holding your funds, and in this case you actually hold your own digital assets in a hardware place. That is a little trickier for some folks to get their minds around. And like Coinbase, for example, is more like a traditional bank, and but we believe we're the safest option.
Yeah, you're the chief legal officer. So, in what regulatory box does SHAPESHIFT fit actually?
Good question, and we can't really figure it out either, because we're not a traditional exchange. We don't fall into that box. We don't custody user assets, and so therefore a lot of the consumer protection laws that regulate those who do, like banks and money transmitters, those don't really make sense to apply to us. And so right now we're sort of wrestling internally with what set of regulations make sense, and there isn't really an existing set of regulations that make sense for us. To be on, to de-risk the company, we do KYC, and we have a robust AML and sanctions program just to make sure, and to de-risk the company. We're not interested in, facilitating any, wrongdoing. So we've de-risked in that way. But again, to find the proper box is difficult.
So formally, you're still unregulated, or how does it work in the U.S.?
Well, we recently registered as an MSB in the U.S., which is a money services business. Again, just for a de-risking standpoint, and because it's just a registration. But again, a lot of the other laws, a lot of the state and federal laws that are out there that are regulating some other folks in the space don't make sense to apply to us. So right now, we've taken that one step. And we're still, analyzing what makes sense.
Right. Maybe just it's a broader question, of course. So we still don't know what Bitcoin is. I mean, essentially, Dutch regulators don't know it. American regulators don't know it. So, what do you think it is?
Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Ooh, what a dangerous question to ask a lawyer. Yeah. So. Everyone who's watching this knows what Bitcoin is. You mean from a regulatory standpoint? Because the U.S. regulators are we've got the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, that says it's property. We've got the Commodities and Futures regulator saying it's a commodity. The SEC has said that Bitcoin is not a security, but many other coins and tokens could be deemed to be securities. So everyone's still sort of wrestling with how to manage. And so what's interesting is that, and interesting and difficult to deal with, is the fact that all these regulatory agencies have taken different approaches, and so it's a little bit tricky for us to figure out how to comply. We'd very much like some clarity out of some agencies, and we'd really like to just have to deal with one agency. That would be awesome. Because right now there's too many cooks in the kitchen in a way.
Right. So how do you think these rules and regulations will evolve around digital assets? I mean, it's a bit of a broad question, but we're still struggling.
Right, and because law and regulation tends to be reactive, meaning something has to happen, and then legislation, gets proposed. I'm thinking that typically the way that these regulations work is to protect the financial system from tinkering and collapse, but also from money laundering and facilitating crime, and also protecting the consumers. So it's a little bit of a juggling act to figure out which is the best way to get all of that in one place. So right now, we're a bunch of lobbying groups are pressing for some clarity from specifically the SEC, which would be nice. But I think it might take legislation, it might take law in the U.S. Actual Congress has to make law on this, because right now the regulatory agencies are not giving us enough clarity.
Yeah, there are a few congressmen or women that are favorable of cryptocurrencies, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
a great number, and across parties too. We have a number of parties in the U.S., but we're basically a two-party system, and both Democrats and Republicans, folks from either side, fall on. It doesn't seem to be a party-driven question right now. We've got some Democrats and some Republicans who are interested in seeing this industry grow and getting us some, concrete regulation, law and regulation to guide us. And then there's a whole section that don't care about this industry, and some that are against it. But again, it doesn't seem to fall on party lines at all.
Yeah, there was this congressman who actually wanted to forbid Bitcoin. Huh? There was this a few weeks back.
Yeah, there's always going to be one, right? I find that when folks say they want to ban something or forbid it, it usually comes from a place of not understanding it, and that's probably the case with that gentleman.
Right. And you have, for instance, Wyoming, who's like this regulatory sandbox. Do you have several others, or?
Yeah, those are so. The U.S. legal system is federal and then state, and then we have, as you may have heard, 50 states plus some territories. So Wyoming has tried to, plant a flag in the industry, and they're doing a great job. They're making some very interesting laws and regulations right now. What we need to figure out is how to import or export those laws to other states. Right? Will that charter that they are proposing be accepted in other states, and that gives us a 50-state solution for crypto business.
Right. Just a few more questions. I mean, we see a lot of. New York State, for instance, has this different license system. How does it actually work? Because of this financial center. Yeah,
it hasn't proven to be well. So first of all, the licensees, they're not many. Let's put it that way. So I haven't heard anything good about it. We didn't pursue one of those licenses. We are not in New York. We do not service U.S. customers because of that. New York customers, but because of that. Because the law is very, we think, unreasonable, and so therefore we're not gonna go and apply for one of those licenses. Okay. There are varying opinions as to the New York, Department of Financial Institutions. But let's just say we are not licensed in New York, and we don't really intend to get licensed in New York anytime soon.
And how's the sentiment in the U.S. market? I mean, for instance, ICOs were also formally forbidden. Then you had all these variations of utility or...
Well, I don't know that I want to say ICOs were forbidden. What happened is that ICOs were happening, and it was kind of a gold rush, and a lot of people regarded that as kind of free money, and there was a lot of scamming going on. So the first foray into squashing that scamminess was the SEC issuing the Dow report, and then doing a couple of enforcement actions on some really obviously, nefarious projects. So now people can still raise money in a certain way, but they have to prove that they're not actually offering a security. And if they are offering a security, they have to comply with the SEC rules on that. So I wouldn't say it's been forbidden. I would say it has been curtailed and managed.
Is it like in the same bucket as Kickstarter, crowdfunding box, or?
Not really, no. I mean, because Kickstarter and crowdfunding depends, right? So if you're building a really great ice cream scoop, then you go to Kickstarter, or that's kind of not fair to Kickstarter. They have a lot of amazing projects, but I'm trying to think of something that's really clearly not a security. And if you're building a great ice cream scoop and you get a Kickstarter funding for it, and everyone gets a free ice cream scoop if they donate to the Kickstarter program, right? Then there are a lot of arguments that people would make to say that a Kickstarter project and a token offering are similar in that regard. But the SEC has its own set of rules for tokens in particular.
Right. CFTC seems to be has more positive or milder stance, generally speaking.
Yes, but right. And there's a good argument that crypto at the moment is a commodity because of the way it is treated. It's not spent so much as huddled, as I read your cap. Yeah. And so therefore that is more, it gets treated more like a commodity by people who actually have it. So they have their own set of rules and regulations that, they haven't been quite as aggressive in pursuing different companies, but they could start any moment.
All right. So thank you very much, Veronica, for your time. Do you have any favorite coins at the moment?
Always Bitcoin. Well, I'm a Bitcoin girl. Right.
Thanks a lot.